Well, hello, everybody. Welcome,
Hello.
everybody, to Hidden Movie Club After the Credits. Today is episode 15, and as you might notice, our esteemed colleague, Elin Osborne, is not with us today. So, Brad and I are going to be running the show, just the two of us. So, hopefully, that's still enjoyable to you all. If not, then maybe you'll enjoy the film we're going to be talking about today. I'm pretty darn excited for this. We are going to be discussing Pee-wee's Big Adventure, the 1985 Tim Burton film about an eccentric man-child, Pee-wee Herman, who gets his beloved bike stolen in broad daylight and then sets out across the United States on the adventure of his life. For those of you that follow us somewhat closely, we were originally going to talk about Moonlight today, but in light of the fact that Elin could not make it today, we decided to pivot. So we're going to do a movie we've talked about at least a handful of times. I know,
hmm
Brad, you said that you've mentioned this quite a few times and have wanted to watch this again and discuss it. So I'm excited about this. And I'm actually going to turn it right over to you to start us off because I'm mostly curious, what's your rating of this movie? What are your general thoughts? And considering that I thought this was the first time I'd seen this movie, but now after watching it, I'm pretty sure I have seen it before. So I know you've seen it a few times. So when was the first time you saw it, and did that change at all now that you're an
Oh,
adult, or now that you're watching it a little more critically, maybe?
oh my God. The first time I saw this movie, it's funny hearing you say that. Oh, I thought it was maybe the first time that you had seen it. And I was like, this is probably my, I don't know, 100th time seeing it over like since I was a kid. I was probably,
Really?
yeah, probably like around 5 or 6 when I first kind of discovered it. And I don't even remember how. I think at the time the show was already out, and we actually, Derek and I just had this discussion, but the show came after the movie.
Yeah, which
So
totally blows my mind because
yeah,
I
yeah,
I watched the show as a kid all the time.
yeah,
John B. the Genie, Cowboy Curtis, Mickle High, Mickle Hiney Hiney Ho, all
yep,
that
yep.
stuff. Like
Um,
very near and dear to me, and I'm surprised that I've never seen the movie.
well, what's funny is, yeah, so I was probably like 5 or 6, and apparently when I was a kid, I was obsessed with the movie. Like I loved it. I think I even had like the Pee Wee Herman doll where you like the pull cord on it. It's like whatever. All
There's a
right,
snake
Spec.
in my boots.
Yeah, right. So yeah, I've probably seen it over 100 times throughout the
Wow.
years. I mean, I, I think because it's so strange, like this kind of adult man child. I mean, like I also really like Paul Rubens just as a person. Like, well, I mean,
Hmm.
I unfortunately he's passed now, but like I've always liked kind of. I mean, when I was younger, I had no idea about the whole controversy around him or anything like that. I just knew that I liked Pee Wee and I liked Pee Wee's Big Adventure. I did watch Pee Wee's Playhouse a lot, and but I don't know. Pee Wee's Big Adventure has always had this kind of like spot in my heart for whatever reason, and I think even now today, it's probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite, um, like top three Tim Burton movies. Like Beetlejuice, Edward Scissorhands, and Pee Wee's Big Adventure are kind of all in that
Nice.
vernacular there. And yeah, I mean, I think as an adult, uh, there are a lot more innuendos in this movie than I remember as a kid. Obviously, I got a lot more of the jokes.
Hmm.
Uh, Large Marge doesn't scare me anymore. So as a
Although that was
kid,
pretty, I could see that freaking somebody out as a kid.
yeah, I
That
mean
was,
the claymation or like the stop
yeah.
motion animation. Also like all of the dream sequences in the movie did always like frighten me as a kid, and now I'm just like, wow, it is it's still pretty like frightening the way they will take like Francis and he's like the devil, and
Hmm.
also the music is just phenomenal throughout.
Hmm.
I can't say enough good things about Danny Elfman's score, and this was only his like second uh like score that he did. I think the
Hmm.
first one was Back to School, and then he did this one. This was also his very first collaboration with Tim Burton. And I mean, if I had to give the movie, if I rate it purely on nostalgia, it's 10,
Okay.
which I don't give out very. I give that out very rarely. But if I had to rate it like now, I'd probably give it a solid, for me, a 8.5, 9, like a really like solid. I mean, considering that this was Tim Burton's first feature film, I think it has all of his kind of weirdness in his style just kind of like amped up. Like he wasn't afraid at the time. I think also I watched a documentary called I think it was about
Pee
Paul
Wee as
Rubens.
himself.
Yes. And they just kind of let them do whatever they wanted. Like they weren't like, this was kind of back in the day, like the studio wasn't really involved in the production or how the movie turned out. And in fact, I don't think they liked the way the movie turned out. But yeah, I think this is one of those things where like with no studio involvement, this was just like Tim Burton was like, let's just go crazy, like within the budget. And, just like the whole chase scene and the back lot and everything with all the different, the like old school, like 50s summer beach movie, and then like Godzilla and just all of this stuff. I'm like, oh my God, there's just so much in this movie, and it kind of goes all over the place. But the one core is Pee-wee's got to get his bike back. He's in love with the bike. So yeah, I think for me, it's probably a solid 9 still. But on nostalgia, it's like up there. Like it's like it's also one of those movies that if I don't know what to watch, I could just turn it on and just have it on in the background as I'm writing or editing or something. It's just, always good.
That's interesting to me. And I was curious. I wanted to start with you because as I was watching the movie, and this might be kind of like a hot take on this or whatever, but I was curious what you would think because we just watched Alice in Wonderland. And to me, this is a very, very similar movie to Alice in Wonderland, except in the opposite form. Whereas in Alice in Wonderland, she's the normal person who finds herself in a absolutely nonsensical, crazy, child-driven world. This movie is the opposite. It's a man-child who is literally the best or the most succinct word that I can use is he's like an imp essentially, who's luck goes his way in ways that shouldn't, the laws of physics don't apply to him and everything, and he's stuck in like a normal adult world as somebody who never grew up. So I feel like that says quite a bit about you, that you don't like Alice in Wonderland, but you don't like this, or that you do like this one so much and you don't like Alice in Wonderland, because I see a lot of parallels between them.
I see zero. No, I'm just kidding.
I don't know when I saw this movie for the first time, but I just either I've seen enough of certain scenes that I recognize those scenes, or I've definitely seen it before kind of in passing or something. But there was so much that I just felt like I remembered of it. And even again, I watched the show for sure all the time. We used to watch it at my grandma's house regularly. It was a favorite of ours for sure. And I'm not even bothered by the masturbation in the theater or any of like Paul Rubens' other stuff. I actually do want to watch that documentary. I love the fact that it's named Pee Wee Herman as himself, because that's how he was credited on Pee Wee's Playhouse. They never credited Paul Rubens. It was always all the cast and then Pee Wee at the end. But overall, I think I would give this movie. I wouldn't go all the way to 9, but I would say probably like an 8 out of 10. And I think mostly the reason that I would give it that is because this movie wouldn't work at all if it wasn't for the 3 that you mentioned: Paul Rubens, Tim Burton, and Danny Elfman. If you got any other people besides those people to make this movie, I just don't think any of the jokes would land. I think it would be like super dry. You wouldn't feel any of that like weird, dark, childish, again, the impishness of Pee Wee Herman. Because I mean, a lot of the stuff that happens to him, like you have to wonder, how in the hell does a guy like this live in that house, have all these gadgets, do all these things? Like, and the answer is it doesn't fucking matter. Like, just sit down, enjoy the craziness, and enjoy the ride. And I did. I thought it was really funny. There's some jokes, like you mentioned, there's some adult humor that I really, really, really enjoyed. My favorite joke in the movie is probably not even like an adult joke necessarily, but I feel like most adults are the only ones that are going to get it, which is the "Remember the Alamo" joke.
Yeah.
I don't know why that was so funny to me, but it's just like, what's your name? I don't remember. Where are you at? I don't remember. I remember the Alamo. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know why.
Yeah.
That's such a stupid joke, but it's so funny to me. And then just overall, like it nails the vibe, man. The
Yeah.
music nails
Yeah.
the vibe. Paul Rubens nails the vibe as Pee-wee, and then Tim Burton. Even the little like production flaws. Like I forget what part it is, but there's a scene where I think the bull like jumps over a fence or something, and there's like a distinct cut you can see where they like freeze frame before the bull shows up
Yeah.
and then the
Yeah.
bull jumps over and stuff like that. Like little things like that I noticed, but they didn't bother me at all because it all kind of like works in the zaniness of everything that's going on. And I don't know. I just thought it was really, really enjoyable.
Yeah. And I think that you kind of got to hand it to the supporting cast as well, because
Mm-hmm.
when you're going up against the main character like Pee Wee Herman, you need a strong like villain, Francis,
Mm-hmm.
played by Mark Holton, who was also in another favorite 80s movie of mine, Teen Wolf. He played Chubby in that movie. And he was also in Little Giants as well. So he's been in quite a few things over the years. E.G. Daily, Elizabeth Daily, always a classic. Most people know her as the voice of Tommy from the Rugrats, but she was also in Better
Oh,
Off
nice. I
Dead.
didn't know that.
Yeah, she was Better Off Dead. She sung the song. She was an artist for a while, but she got into voice acting. Yeah, I mean, also co-written with Paul Rubens, Phil Hartman co-wrote the
Mm-hmm.
movie along with Michael Varhol.
Which is weird
And
because when I saw that on the credits at the beginning, I was like, number one makes total sense. But number two, I read somewhere that they had never, this was their first screenplay.
Mhm.
They had never written a screenplay before, and this was the result. And I'm like, well, damn. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
thanks
I
for making
mean,
me feel like crap.
I mean, yeah. I mean, Phil Hartman was another. Unfortunately, someone else who passed on. I just realized this movie came out August 9th, 1985. So we're coming up on the 41st anniversary of this movie, which
Mm-hmm.
is insane.
Good Lord.
That's so crazy. 41 years ago. Um, yeah, and then also, you have little cameos by popular people. I don't want to say popular people at the time, but definitely Twisted Sister,
Mm-hmm.
well, See
D.
No
Snyder.
Evil, yeah. And then well, I can't remember his name from the Wonder Years. He played Kevin's older brother. I don't think at the
Oh, yeah,
time
the little
the kid was
kid,
yeah.
the
And
actor.
yeah, and Mother Superior was Lynn Marie Stewart, who was also on Pee Wee's Playhouse, but I think most people know her now as Charlie's mom from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, which is very
That's
strange.
awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's so many little things in here. I was telling Derek before that this is one of the few movies where I've watched the whole thing multiple times with the commentary on, so you learn little things about the production, obviously. And like I was mentioning the duct tape, like in the opening where he's got the keypad, like where he types in the numbers and it opens the like the garden, we'll call it the garden wall, and reveals
Yeah,
his bike. That's just
the
on there with
shrub.
the duct tape with the spray paint, and then um all of the pan and scan stuff that people thought it was. I in the commentary they talk about how because I believe it's Tim Burton and Paul Rubens. They talk about how people think that was intentional. So when they see it on TV, or at the time when they saw it on TV in the open mat, so you get a little bit more at the top and bottom, they thought it was intentional that you see the chain coming up from the bottom of the bike, or that you see like the ropes being pulled and the track where the signs are coming by. That was all not supposed to be there because like the way the movie was filmed.
Yeah,
And I
well, and
just
to clarify what Brad what
Mhm.
he's referring to is that if you watch the regular movie nowadays, you won't see this stuff because the movie's in widescreen. But when they
Yep.
released it for TV, there were two different versions of it. There was a open matte version where they basically normally when you letterbox a movie, they literally take black bars and put them at the top and bottom to kind of cut stuff off. And then when you do pan and scan, they then take that further and crop the sides in to get the part that they want. And then if something is not in frame, they literally pan the camera across
Yep.
that frame to get whatever the subject is in focus. The other way to do it is to take those mats back off to expose a little bit more of the top and bottom of the frame. But as Brad's talking about, usually that means showing things on camera that were never intended to be seen because
Yep.
it was always assumed that they would be covered by those black bars.
Yeah, we're not talking about like shot for IMAX or whatever, where
Yeah.
they intentionally there's this extra information at the top and bottom. Typically, in instances like that, they have like an on-camera monitor where they have it protected so you see it how it's going to be projected in the theater, and a lot of stuff now these days they don't even like think about that. They'll have like protection on there if they're shooting like 235, so like super like much wider. But then like Derek was talking about, pan and scan is more reserved for movies that weren't shot open matte, that maybe were shot anamorphic, where they you know were squeezed into this frame already, and then they have to basically zoom in and crop everything. Yes, Duppy, pan and scan, pan and suck. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
for years I remember working in a video store just trying, like back in early 2000s, just trying to tell people like, hey, you're actually seeing more. Well, my TV's not filled, I'm seeing less. I'm like, no, you're actually seeing the way it was, like it
Yeah.
was shown in the theater.
Well, I don't think most people realize. I mean, we're probably dating ourselves even by
That's
mentioning
fine.
most of this stuff. But even like when you would go to the video store to either buy or rent a DVD, you had to pick a version. You had to pick a pan and scan or full screen version or the widescreen version.
Yep.
Every now and then, some studios were actually kind of smart and did one disc that was two-sided, so you'd have the widescreen version on one side and then the full screen or pan and scan version on the other side. But I can't tell you how many times I purchased a movie because it either didn't say, or you
Oh,
order it through some way where you're not like directly seeing it. Actually, one of the first DVDs that I bought on Amazon.com, I remember, you were just buying the movie and then they sent it to you and they sent the wrong version or the one you didn't want or
yep,
whatever.
yep,
Happened all the time. Happened all the time.
yeah. I mean, there was a time there where I'd probably say in the late 90s where VHS movies started coming out with widescreen versions. For most of the time, it
Mm-hmm.
was 4:3 pan and scan or what have you, and you could never get the widescreen versions. What's funny is the first movie I ever rented that was widescreen was Speed. I remember
Nice.
renting it because I was like, heck yeah, I've never seen the movie like this. And it was like, oh my, there's so much more stuff. I didn't have a widescreen TV at the time, but I just remember watching it going, all right, yeah, this is the future. And then this is the future. And now here we are, like Letterboxed is here to stay.
Yeah. The
I
best part
really,
was, oh, sorry. My dad had a laser disc player, and the best
okay,
part
yeah,
was that the laser disc player could actually determine from the disc itself whether it was letterboxed, anamorphic,
yeah,
or pan and scan. And so sometimes you'd get a cool laser disc player that you'd get some options for fixing that stuff. So if you wanted to,
yeah,
you could get a slightly reduced letterbox version that would fill up more of the screen, but then it would cut off the sides
yeah.
and
Yeah,
stuff
now we
like that.
have like AI stuff. Like I know Mad VR has a bunch of like stuff that they can do. I mean, it's like a $15,000 box. It's
Hmm.
gonna basically like, oh, you have these different aspect ratios, and we actually don't cut. What do they call it? I can't remember the name of it, but it's supposed to like only stretch the center of the edges of the sky. I don't know. But I was just like, no, I don't want to. I don't want to like fuck with any of the original intent. If I'm gonna watch a movie like this, I don't want to. I think it's mainly meant for people that have like 2.35:1 screens, like ultra wide. But yeah, I think yeah, this is one of those movies where like, yeah, widescreen is the way to go. Otherwise, you
Hmm.
start seeing some weirdness on the outside of the frame that wasn't supposed to be seen there.
Yeah, and to your point, Brad, I think that what's interesting about that is that because of how weird the movie is already, when you start seeing that additional weirdness, you can't
Mhm.
ever be certain whether it was intentional or not, and so it kind of
Yeah.
leaves like this weird ambiguity while you're watching. So I
And
think
I
that's
wonder if
funny.
that's why people thought it was intentional, because they were like, "Oh, it's Pee-wee, of course," you know?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly. It almost seems like one of those parody movies where they intentionally like I remember shit, what are they called? Not Hot Shots, but
Naked
Leslie
Gun?
Nielsen. Yeah,
Naked
Naked
Gun.
Gun.
Yeah.
Leslie Nielsen in one of the Naked Guns, there's like a great trick where they show it's obviously like a set and they walk from room to room, and normally there's like, it's just kind of a flat wall. They're not going to like actually build out the full wall for a scene like that. So it's just a flat wall, and Leslie Nielsen walks towards the camera and around the other side of the wall, and you're like, okay, obviously that's intentional. But like with something like Pee-wee, I think if you're watching it, you could genuinely be confused and be like, did they mean to do
Did they
that? Or
are they breaking this intentionally? Yeah,
yeah.
they're I remember I can't remember when I was like rewatching it and I started like picking up on little things that like happened in the movie, like little like just little subtle like expressions on like Pee-wee's face that
Hmm.
maybe as a kid you don't pick up on. But also like a couple things always come to mind when I think of the movie. um it wasn't about the bike. When I was a kid, I wanted to take a bath like Francis took a bath in that big ass pool. Like, where is
With
he?
all the
Oh, he's taking a
ships.
bath. Yeah.
All I kept thinking during that scene was, what a little asshole.
Right? Right? Oh, you do believe me, don't you, Dad?
Yeah.
Just think of the gum too. Um al-
Ah.
Also the talking about like innuendos, the whole like X-ray glasses bit
Hmm.
where he like puts him, he's like, ooh.
There's a few of them. That was another one of the jokes that I really liked. There's like a whole scene of innuendos where he's talking, I think, with Dottie. I'm trying to remember what the scene is, but they like he talks about like giving it to her or something, and it's like a back and forth, and they play it completely straight. There's no
Yeah.
acknowledgement of the innuendo, but it's like some very, very clear innuendo between the two
Yeah.
of them, and I was like, he doesn't even show, and that was the thing, is like she's obviously got a crush on him or has some kind of like infatuation with him, whereas he's a little bit, he's aloof and doesn't really pick up on that or whatever. So the innuendo that he's feeding her, like she's picking up on that and like taking it, I think, to mean more than it does, and then it ends up, being a bunch of nothing.
Mhm. So also the when Pee Wee loses his bike, and I always think this is another one of those things that I never obviously understood as a kid, but when he loses his bike and he goes to see the psychic, I can never
Hmm.
remember her name, Madame Ruby.
Hmm.
That alley that he walks down is a very famous alley that they used for Purple Rain.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah, so it's the same alley. Um, when he's like, "Hey, we don't take kindly to strangers coming on our turf," and then he like hisses at him or something, and
Yeah.
that's the same alley that you see in Purple Rain.
That's
Um,
actually not surprising to me, because I
yeah,
actually think I was thinking the whole time, because considering it is Tim Burton's first movie, they had a lot of access to the Warner Brothers lots, and I'm actually
mhm,
quite surprised how much like you could potentially use that in some historical context, as like this movie is essentially like a snapshot of what that whole Warner Brothers lot was like. I've never really
yeah.
seen a movie that shows that much behind the scenes while not being actual behind the scenes footage.
It is crazy the amount of like. It made me want to go and visit the Warner, because it was the Warner Brothers backlot
Hmm.
at the time,
The
and
Burbank
yep,
studio, if I'm not
yep.
mistaken.
And all of the stuff. I think even the snake store was there, like where he, or like the pet store or whatever, where
The
he got all
burning
the
pet
snakes.
shop.
Yeah, the
that's
burning pet
that's
shop.
such a good joke too. Every time,
Right.
oh, and then he runs.
He
I don't
keeps
know why.
going. Yeah,
It's
it's
so
just
stupid, but it's so
right.
funny.
And it happens, I can't remember, like 3 or 4 times where he just keeps going in and he just keeps eyeballing it's so good. Yeah. There's obviously like Twisted Sister makes a brief appearance in it, and
Hmm.
which is a
The
great
music
song.
video.
Yep. Stino Evil. Um and I don't know if anybody else caught this when Pee Wee goes to the biker bar and he's like, I'm trying to use the phone. That whole thing. There's like, I say we let him go. The woman that walks up is Cassandra Peterson, Elvira.
Oh, no
So
shit.
her and Pee and Paul Rubens were very good friends, and she said that he would call her, like, I don't know, every night, but it was like he would call her on the phone and they would talk as Elvira and Pee Wee. Like, he's like, he never called me Cassandra. It was always Elvira, and I always called him Pee Wee. And I was like, this kind of sweet, like friendship.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I got to see that documentary.
Oh, it's
I've
so
been meaning
good.
to. I've been
It's
meaning
sad,
to
but it's
because
good. Like knowing,
yeah.
knowing what we know now about, like, what he was dealing with when he was making it, and he kept it a secret from
Yeah, it's not the scene I'm thinking about, but I also really liked the big butt scene where he's with that waitress or whatever, and like her boyfriend is kind of outside like listening, and he
Oh
starts
yeah.
talking about what is your big butt or whatever.
Yep, Simone. Yeah, what's your
Yeah,
big butt,
Simone.
Simone? Yeah.
That was funny too because it's kind of like
Yeah.
innuendo, but that's played for innuendo.
Yep. But also that, and again, I always, and I do this with most movies, is if I see something that I've seen in another movie, it just kind of sticks with me. So the dinosaur, I can't remember what that's called it's in California, I believe. Very famous, the whole dinosaur, like you can go up in the dinosaur, and that, obviously the sunset and everything was fake for the show or for the movie. But that same like that's become famous or infamous, I guess, now for Pee-wee's Big Adventure. But it was also featured in the 1989 movie The Wizard with Fred
Fred
Savage, and it's like
Savage.
where they stop at the end of the movie because it's where Jimmy and
Infamous. Infamous. What do you think
infamous.
infamous means?
Yeah,
It's more than famous.
it's
You're
more than
so famous that you're
famous.
more than famous.
And I'm not thinking of the game Infamous, but it's infamous. But also a very good game, Infamous. I feel like we need a Pee-wee game.
A Pee-wee game?
Yeah,
You know
I mean,
what?
imagine just
That actually would work because again, he's kind of like impish. I don't want to say that he has like magic powers, but there's very clearly like some sort of force that is like Pee-wee, Pee-wee adjacent that keeps him from getting into a bunch of different things that he probably has no business not being involved in.
yeah. Yeah. Now I will say that, we're talking about Pee-wee's Big Adventure, but I would be remiss without mentioning another favorite of mine as a child, Big Top Pee-wee, sorry. I love this movie as a kid. I've tried to watch it as an adult and I just can't get through most of it.
Big Top Pee-wee?
Yeah, Big Top Pee-wee. I mean, you have a talking pig.
Is that also Tim Burton?
No, this is something, and I think this is where it kind of lost me. So like, he's got like an obsessive girlfriend who always like wants to have picnics with him, played by Penelope Ann Miller. A talking pig is like, oh, come on, baby. That's literally the entire movie. He's talking like that. Something about growing bigger plants and the circus is, it's like all of this. Yeah. It's
See,
just,
that's what I'm saying. If you don't have Pee Wee Herman, Tim Burton, and Danny Elfman, I can see that
it's the trio. It's the
not
trio that
succeeding.
really made it work, I think. And
Randall Kleiser was the director of that one.
okay, yeah, definitely not as well regarded. And I also watched, was it Pee-wee's Big Holiday?
Mm-hmm.
That came out, was it 20 something?
Danny Elfman did compose Big Top Pee Wee.
Okay.
So it's just the Tim Burton that's missing.
Yep. He was off probably doing Beetlejuice or Edward Scissorhands or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did watch Pee-wee's Big Holiday, and it just kind of, I mean, we're talking about 10 years ago now. This is 2016. Um, it was kind of hard to watch. Like it
I
wasn't.
agree. I did see
Uh,
that one.
I there was something off about it, and I think part of it was the shtick that Paul Rubens was doing to try to bring more youthfulness to Pee Wee. And I'm not talking about the CGI face or anything like that, because they did do some type of. And here's the other thing: I don't know if this is a bit or not, but when he was on Conan O'Brien talking about it, he was talking about when they made the movie that he was all ready to talk about, the effects that they did. He's like, that movie, The Irishman. He's like, yeah. He's like, we did that before they did it, and I was all set to talk about it, but people were just like, "Oh my god, what is your secret? It's like time stood still." And he's like, "I'm sitting 2 feet in front of you. What are you talking about? I don't
Yeah,
look anything like that."
yeah.
And he's like, "Yeah, it was like a lot of backlighting, and they had like a Academy Award winning makeup artist, but like they did some smoothing and some weirdness to his face to try to make him look more youthful." And um, yeah, and I get it, but like there's just something about this first movie that I think definitely stands more the test of time. It is dated. There are there are things in it where you're like, what is a payphone? Like what are these things that he used? I But I will say that the one scene that I think is probably one of the most iconic in terms of like Danny Elfman's score and just kind of like the genius of Tim Burton is The Breakfast Machine. So that whole sequence with the everything being made. If you watch like Edward Scissorhands, when you see the flashbacks to the creator or with the creator, played by Vincent Price, you could see a lot of the same kind of. There's some of the same little mechanics in there, and I think it's definitely part of the production designer as well. So it's not just Tim Burton, but man, like it's really cool to see something like this from the '80s, where it's just like this. People, like everybody calls it like a Goldberg machine now, but it's just, as a kid, I'm like, I want that. Even though when you watch it now as an adult, you're like, well, that's obviously just like a foam ball that's
Mhm.
orange filled with some orange liquid.
It reminded me a lot of the beginning to Back to the Future too, because when that first starts and
Yeah,
Doc Brown is nowhere to be found and his thing's going off and messing all those things up.
yeah,
It
yeah,
it reminded me of that a lot. But yes, very, very, very like signature Tim Burton kind of contraption.
yeah. And I also love the foreshadowing of like, don't leave the house today, when he
Hmm.
has his fortune read on the after he weighs himself, and he weighs a whopping 98 pounds or something. Was it like 98? It was like
Yeah,
under
something
100 pounds.
ridiculous. Something
Yeah, I'm like,
ridiculous. I
oh
don't
my god.
even know. Like as we were watching that scene, my wife and I kind of both commented and looked at each other because, the machine that he got his horoscope from had like all the other months as well, and I couldn't tell if it was like, does he just pull the one machine, like the one slot from the
I
thing every day, or
maybe
is
we
it
yeah.
like,
I
is
don't
it
think that's
just
for us
his
to know.
horoscope for the year? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like one of those things.
It's like a one bit in the movie, and that's it.
Yeah,
It's
I wonder how he like how or they or whoever pitched this movie, because even like when I'm thinking about it, it's kind of like okay, so there's this guy, he's like a man child, and he's just like crazy. Like I don't know that I could even invent a character like Pee Wee Herman without that like childhood earnestness, I guess. Like I feel like Paul Rubens must have invented Pee Wee as a character when he was very young,
oh
and
yeah.
then just kind of like, he I don't know, manifested him or something, because I
He
just
was
it sounds like an acid trip when you're trying to like describe who Pee Wee Herman is and what type of person he is.
yeah. I mean, if you watch the documentary about Paul Rubens, you definitely find out when he created Pee Wee, and he was, I think, in the late 70s. So
Ooh,
like
I
he
hope
has
it's
had
not
that
like a
character.
disassociation thing, is it? I mean, I
No,
watched the documentary, but
no. It was just a character that he kind of started, and he just it kind of it kind of blew up,
hmm.
and he just went with it. And he had this idea that he didn't want people to know, because he was like a struggling actor. He had
Hmm.
done some things, but like he couldn't. like get steady work, and he wasn't happy. And then he came up with this Pee Wee character and just kind of blew up. And then he kind of had this idea where he's like, well, people love Pee Wee, so what if they just never meet Paul Rubens? Like what if I do interviews as Pee Wee and I do like all of this stuff? Like I just like I am the like basically I can't remember for how long it was, but there was a period of time where any public appearance by Paul Rubens, it was all Pee Wee. Like it was not Paul Rubens. He wanted to keep his private life private because he was, didn't
like
want to come out.
Prestige.
Yeah, but like he
sacrifices for his art.
He had a very serious like partner and a very like, and he didn't want to kind of. I mean, it was like the early 80s and the late 70s, and he didn't want to kind of expose that and like tarnish the Pee Wee reputation, or like just have things viewed differently because of his own preference and his own sexuality.
Which is an odd choice because Pee Wee is such a weirdo.
Yeah. But I mean, again, we're talking about in a time where coming out of the closet could completely end your career.
Mm-hmm.
So I get it. Like I get why he did that. I think in the documentary he said like he kind of regretted it. I can't remember the exact words he used, but yeah, it's a really good watch if you're into Pee Wee at all or into Paul Rubens, because I think he was definitely like a misunderstood like individual in many aspects. What's funny is if anybody's a fan of Flight of the Navigator, he also voiced Max in that movie, the robot, but he's credited as Paul Mall because they didn't want
live.
Yeah, because he didn't want he was like, oh, I didn't want people to know it was me. I'm like, really, Paul? Really, Paul? Okay, Paul. But yeah, I what else? So I also love when movies do this shtick where it's a movie within a movie.
Mm-hmm.
So like
that was one of my favorite scenes.
He gets his movie made. It's James Brolin. It's Morgan Fairchild. The whole I know you are, but what am I? Like that whole back and forth. Also, like he's a freaking like he's instead of a bicycle, it's a motorcycle. And like there's these ninjas and all this crazy stuff. And then when he shows up, oh my god! Watching that scene of like Pee Wee Herman as a guest star with like an obviously overdubbed voice, paging Mr. Herman, Mr. Herman.
And then on top of that, to break the fourth wall a little further,
and him looking at the camera
himself. Yeah. Well, he's watching the movie that he's in of a scene based on him, that we're then watching.
If you watch that scene and watch Pee Wee the whole time, he's mouthing the lines along with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's so hilarious. And then when it cuts, he like looks at the camera. Like he's like not experienced at all in being in front of the camera. It's just, I think.
Well, yeah, that whole thing, every time he kept like moving to be like in between them. I thought that was so funny because I kept expecting them to like go in for the kiss, and they stop perfectly at both sides of his cheeks. So they're just kind of like with his face like right in the middle there. It's so good.
It's one of those things. It's like it's one of those like little perfect. It's subtle but over the top at the same time. Like it's not like it's not something that immediately calls attention to itself. But I also think it shows, just like Paul Rubens and how well Paul Rubens and Tim Burton work together, but also just the kind of like genius of both of them. Because obviously it was like a collaboration throughout the whole movie, but it's like there are certain sequences in the movie where you're like, oh my god, like to film that, it must have been insane. But like to have these ideas and to be on set and be like, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to dress up Mark Holton as Francis as the devil. And we're going to have a crane come in with your bicycle and we're going to drop it into a pit. It's like all of these things. And you're like, wait, are we really doing this? Which also I wanted to mention this too, because it's funny when that music that plays in his dream sequence, I can't remember the track name, is actually in Grand Theft Auto 5 in one of the sequences where you're like on drugs and you have to go and like shoot up a bunch of I think it's like
one where you skydive.
No, it's early on in the game, and it's like you have to go shoot these people and you think that they're monsters or something, but you're just shooting real people. people because you're like on
Oh,
drugs.
jeez.
I can't remember, but I remember hearing the song and it just kept playing over and
Over
over
and over
again.
and over again.
Yeah, I'm like, wow, okay. How many people would know that this is from Pee Wee's Big Adventure? You
What
know,
do you think are some of the themes in the movie? Like, do you think this movie has a point, or that is just truly nonsensical? Like,
um,
does the character of Pee Wee have some kind of meaning, or like obviously the journey of like losing the bike and trying to find it or whatever is kind of like central. It's what keeps the movie moving forward. But do you feel like there's any point to the movie other than just telling the story of Pee Wee finding his bike? Are there any themes that you think are like recurring throughout the movie?
um, I think that I what's funny is I'm not sure it's that deep.
Okay.
You
I
know,
mean,
like I think it's more of like an adventure in just like an adventure in the sense of like National Lampoon's Vacation is an adventure, right? There's
mhm,
no real lesson learned at the end, really.
mhm,
You know, Clark Griswold is still going to be Clark Griswold. He's not really changed. You know, Ellen's not changed. Like I don't think Pee Wee's very as much as Pee Wee has gone throughout the entire movie. I I don't think he changes. I
mhm,
think he's always going to be Pee Wee, and it doesn't matter what happens around him. I think it's part of it. I think, and maybe this is like a softer point of the movie is that you can what I always liked about it was regardless of who he ran into, he always had a positive effect on their lives. So like the bikers, the
yeah,
was it Mickey? Yeah, Mickey,
yeah.
the guy who cut the mattress tag off of
That's
the
so
mattress,
funny too.
right?
What a great gag.
Um,
Yeah, I was
the
gonna say because when I was watching it, I love Tim Burton. I love his movies, and he very, very often talks about, especially in like commentaries and behind the scenes stuff, talks about how when he was growing up, he never felt like he was accepted by people, and
Mhm.
that he was desperately alone all the time. That the only way he ever made friends or like found commonalities with people was through film and through creative means and stuff like that. And it feels like, again, I haven't seen the Paul Rubens documentary, but it feels like Paul Rubens probably had a lot of that same thing going. And it feels like to me part of the theme that's in there is the fact that Pee Wee is always himself, no matter
Yep.
what. And I don't mean that like obviously like he pretends to be other people or like wears different outfits and stuff like that. I don't mean in that sense. I mean like in at his core, Pee Wee is always himself around everybody, no matter what, completely oblivious to the rest of the world. The scene specifically that you were talking about in the bar when he's like, "Excuse me, I'm on the phone," or whatever, can you quiet down? Or whatever that
Yeah,
is.
yeah,
Like anybody else would be killed for that. But then at the end of that scene, we see that like no matter what, Pee Wee has made friends. Every
yep.
time there's even there's a deleted scene that's not in the movie when he first enters the magic shop. He meets another magician, this amazing wizard guy or whatever, who's like working on a trick or whatever. And the guy is like a little annoyed because Pee Wee's kind of like butting in while he's trying to figure out a new ending for his trick or whatever. And then by the end of that scene, Pee Wee ends up giving him an idea for a new thing or whatever, and they become friends. And I think he actually appears later in the movie with a different haircut because that's what Pee Wee suggested for the gag. The gag was that like his hair would fly up off his head and like float around and then land back on his head, and he was like, people are getting bored of it. And so Pee Wee looks at a dude in a mohawk and is like, "Hey, amazing, whatever. You should check that out." And he's like, "Oh my God, Pee Wee, you're a genius. You amaze me," or whatever. And it's like, I wonder if that subconsciously or intentionally kind of was the influence of both Tim Burton and Paul Rubens. That like, hey, what if we made a guy that like was the outsider, that was like us, but instead of repelling people, like everybody was just his friend. Like no matter what, he always makes friends with these
Yeah.
people. And like from that lens, like when I watch the movie, it's kind of like bittersweet because it's like almost, yeah, Pee Wee's a man child, but it's like almost like an aspirational man child in that like I wish the world was Pee Wee Herman's world, you know? I
Yeah.
don't know.
I was curious, so I typed, "Is there a point to Pee Wee's Big Adventure?" into Google. And here's what it said. Yes, the point
Oh
of Pee Wee's
no.
Big Adventure is to celebrate being completely yourself, finding joy in small things, and show that you
Nailed
do
it.
not need to grow up or change to be accepted. So you
Nailed
kind of
it.
hit on all those
Nailed it.
points.
Is that the
Uh,
AI summary?
yeah, it's the Gemini, the
Oh,
whatever,
okay. Okay. Slop.
slop, AI slop, whatever. Um,
Apparently, I'm generating AI slop out of
yeah,
my own
yeah.
mouth. Damn
You're over
it.
here like,
Damn it.
yes, the point of Pee Wee's Big Adventure. It's
I
just,
just
yeah,
my wife and I don't even, I don't think the show is anywhere near as good as stuff like some of Tim Burton's other films. But like my wife and I, not that long ago, it's been a couple months now, but we watched kind of like a behind the scenes making of Wednesday, that
hmm
show. And in that, that's where really like Tim Burton kind of goes in depth about how lonely he was and it just talks about what it was like. He basically had his drawings to himself, and so that's kind of where I like got that idea from. I
yeah,
think of just like, hey, I wonder if that's what it is. The part that I wasn't sure about is that, as far as I know, Pee-wee is like a Paul Rubens invention completely, like from
yep,
scratch.
yep,
Pee-wee already existed as a character before Tim Burton ever became involved with it, and so I wonder how much of the movie and the character belong to Tim Burton versus Paul Rubens. And then Danny Elfman even has kind of explored those ideas, not just in Oingo Boingo, his band or whatever, but he talks a lot about that when he looks at movies or when he looks at things. Is that the vinyl?
yes. This is the final.
Oh my
So
god.
we originally got this, my wife and I. We were going to go meet Danny Elfman at a convention in Orlando, and we weren't able to make it. So I just have this now. It's the Pee Wee It's the full score for Pee Wee's Big Adventure, and then also the full score for Back to School, which was Danny Elfman's
That's
first major feature film that he
and that
scored.
fit on one record?
Yeah, we got
Wow.
side one and side two. So yeah, Back to School only has like 8 tracks.
That's still a
Overall.
lot for a
So
vinyl, like
yeah, and then the
goodness.
Pee Wee's Big Adventure. I mean, they're all like a minute 15.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
you know, um,
That's awesome that you have that.
yeah,
I'm sorry it's
I
not signed, but
I know. Well, one day we missed our chance, unfortunately, when I think something else was going on at the time when we went to go do that, and we weren't able to meet them. But
yeah, we
yeah,
actually my wife and I a few years ago were supposed to go see. This was like right around COVID because that's why we didn't end up going to see it. But Danny Elfman was doing the Nightmare Before Christmas
mm,
score and soundtrack playing to the movie
yeah,
at the Hollywood Bowl. So they were doing like a live playthrough, and he was doing all the voicing of
yeah.
Jack and everything like that. And then it ended up getting canceled because of COVID, so we didn't get a chance to go. But that is like one of my bucket list things is I want to see Danny Elfman do one of those live scores.
Yeah.
Because I love him. I love
Oh
Danny
yeah.
Elfman so much,
Yeah.
both in his music. Like to me, he's like the genius. Like there are musicians that I think are like musically gifted and that they have it up here, but I don't know if I necessarily like their music. And then there's like the talented musicians that have like the physical chops or whatever, but as writers or song composers, I don't think that great. Danny Elfman has both sides of that coin for
Yeah.
me so much, and then it's like accentuated by the fact that he's just a total weirdo, and I absolutely love how weird he is.
Oh yeah. My wife is a massive Oingo Boingo fan. Like massive.
Really?
She's
Oh
seen them.
yes.
She saw them numerous times in concert. She's like, have you ever heard Danny Elfman yodel? Because oh my god, it's amazing.
I
So
think I have actually.
there's footage on YouTube of you can find him yodeling and stuff.
Yeah. What was
Um,
it for though? Didn't he learn to do it for a film?
I'm not
Or it
sure.
was like a vocal. It might even have been Nightmare Before Christmas. I think I read somewhere that he did it as like a vocal exercise.
Yeah. Well, he was doing it in Oingo Boingo way back in the
Oh,
80s.
maybe then not. Maybe not then.
So, yeah, I also love that he shows up very briefly in Back to School as he's in it like as they're playing Dead Man's Party.
Great
Um,
song. Great
right?
song.
Like just such a great song.
My band is
Um,
definitely covering that for Halloween.
yeah, Weird Science, which he hates
Mhm.
the music video for, which is hilarious. Google that interview, or like watch that interview, and she's like, why do you hate it? She's like, because it's stupid. Like, so yeah, I would remember watching something, and maybe it was the same documentary you watched about Wednesday, where it was, maybe it wasn't, but it was about Danny Elfman and how like him like kind of coming
Yeah,
up and
making the
like
scores.
the making the
I
scores and how people hated him like for no reason,
Uh-huh.
like he was also like, oh, okay, well, I'm just gonna be the asshole then because I'm gonna keep doing this. Like
Yeah. That's what
he's
I'm
like
saying.
that
I wonder if like
kind of fed
all
him.
these super creative people just had, it was not something that your average mainstream audience liked. Oingo Boingo is even a good example of that. Like, yes, they had some mild success as a band or whatever, but like it was always the weirdos that liked Oingo
Hmm.
Boingo, or it was like always the weirdos that liked Tim Burton stuff. And like,
Yeah.
you know, I very much feel that in their movies, everything that they're a part of. I even talk about my brother and I, he's a huge Batman fan. We grew up as kids, all things superheroes, collecting comics and all that stuff. And one of the things that we mentioned about like Batman is the fact that Tim Burton really heavily lays in to the idea that Batman slash Bruce Wayne is a loner, that he is always
Hmm.
alone. Alfred is pretty much his only friend.
Yep.
And then, and that's kind of like a weird, I mean, it's a weird thing. It's not necessarily that weird if you're familiar with like the whole context of Batman in the comics, but like it's a weird thing to focus on for a Batman movie when you're trying to make Batman an appealing superhero
Right.
for a mass audience. And I feel the same thing in like Danny Elfman's scores. Like his scores have this very like it's like a ping pong that I feel like you get. There's like this whiplash between even in Pee Wee, like circus type music that is just
Yep.
really like off the wall and zany, and then this really like sad kind of melancholia that you get, from
Yep.
both sides. I don't know, it's very, 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 very persistent throughout all three of their stuff. And it's weird to me that like Pee Wee is the first movie that I am like explicitly paying attention and like seeing
Yeah.
that story of theirs in.
Yeah, it's crazy when you think about how Danny Elfman just kind of got into it, like got into scoring movies because he doesn't have uh like any like uh I don't know if, I don't think he's classically trained. I think he just has an
Hmm.
ear for it. And so that's where he got a lot of his like a lot of the pushback from like the at the time the film composers and stuff, because they're like, he's not classically trained. He can't do this. He's like, whatever, I'm gonna do it. And I do know that like when he first started, yeah, I mean, even now, but it's probably at this point, it's like, oh, I get to work with Danny Elfman. That's awesome. But he would make these scores like for Beetlejuice, and it was like the tuba player's like, what the fuck are you doing to me?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's like bum, 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 bum. But
Yeah.
like he's like, I can't play this. Like, this isn't physically possible. He's like, well, we have to figure it out, And
Hmm.
oh my gosh, like, yeah, but uh some of the most iconic music in film. I mean, I know everybody talks about John Williams and Hans Zimmer and like I mean, they're all amazing, but like there's something about just Danny Elfman's vibe and score, and it's just very different. Like when you hear it, like you could definitely hear copycats that are
Hmm.
trying to copy him in some way or pay homage, I guess is the the easier way to put a blanket statement on it and be like, oh, I'm not copying him. But yeah, there's something just emotional about the way he writes. And
Hmm.
as much as I didn't really care for Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. The fact that he sang pretty much every part
He did sing every part. I actually love Charlie and the Chocolate Factory specifically
just
because
for the
of the
music.
score. The
Yeah,
the music alone, I got that
yeah,
album and I listened to it on repeat just because I enjoyed how weird it was and how it didn't sound like anything else that I was, listening to or had heard or anything like that. It was almost like I was being a contrarian and it was just like I'm just going to keep listening to this because of how nutty it is. And yeah, even all the Oompa Loompa voices is just him
Yep.
multi-tracking. He did every single Oompa Loompa voice. Deep Roy, they filmed all of his scenes
That
to make
was,
him the Oompa
yeah,
Loompas, and then Danny Elfman did the voices in the exact same way, tracked
yeah.
every single one to every single Oompa Loompa, and then put them all together.
What's crazy to me is the music, and then we talk about like not a. There are parts of the movie that I like, and most of it are
Hmm.
the musical numbers.
Hmm.
But the fact that instead of, this is like early days of CGI, and they could have easily did some type of CGI Deep Roy, just film him a couple times and then multiply him, and no, they were like, we're gonna film him over and over
Yeah,
again on a green
compositing
screen and
hundreds of
composite,
times,
and he
thousands of
did it,
times.
and I'm like, that is the kind of stuff that that I
Yeah.
love. That I'm like, oh, you could have just completely went, completely CGI with it, and you didn't.
Yeah.
So
I want to go back because you mentioned Hans Zimmer and John Williams, and I definitely put Danny
yeah,
Elfman in that same echelon. In fact, if I had to choose, I would kick Hans Zimmer out of that. I love Hans Zimmer, but when I think of like composers and musicians that have like a distinct sound, like even though all of John Williams themes are like different, I
right,
can
right,
hear like I know it's John
yep,
Williams if somebody plays it for me. Same thing with Danny Elfman. The scores that he have, there's a lot of very, very different types of styles of Danny Elfman, but I can immediately, and there are some similarities here and there. He's got
yeah,
little like figures and passages that he likes to repeat
yeah.
or kind of like modify for different things.
Almost like a little trademark that he's got in
Yeah.
his music. Yeah,
Yeah, but I would definitely put those two in that same echelon. And I'm very curious because I've heard criticisms of both John Williams and Danny Elfman, and this less so about Hans Zimmer, especially lately, because nowadays, like I know he's kind of getting out of the composing game, but he started working with like Junkie XL and like
hmm,
other kind of musicians that are a lot more contemporary to try and update his style. He's been interviewed a few times talking about like how he hates the process of movie making a little bit when it comes to like doing the composition because he has to modernize. He can't work on new movies and still keep doing the same thing he's been doing all the time. And I've heard criticisms of Danny Elfman and John Williams that they rode on the idea that people liked their style and they kept that style and never grew out of it, never grew up, and never changed it to follow modern times, and so they quote unquote don't deserve to have the recent successes that they have. How do you feel about that? I think I know the answer, but I'm curious if there's any agreement with that.
I mean, yeah, I don't really agree with that statement, only because, well, not only because, but like I like Hans Zimmer.
Hmm.
Um, do I think I actually do kind of have a bit of an issue with his over reliance on digital instruments these
Hmm.
days, where it's a lot of like distorted, like ambience, and I mean,
Yeah, and that's exactly what these people I think point to as
uh,
him growing and
yeah,
modernizing with the times. And I think I agree with you. I don't know that I necessarily like that. I think changing with the times is important and it's a good thing usually, but it doesn't always mean it's successful.
right. I mean, if I go back to kind of Hans Zimmer's like earlier stuff, like Inception, where he started kind of playing around with like adding an electric guitar, and I think he had can't remember the guy's name who played it. He's a famous guitarist, but adding that in there and adding like digital drums and things like that. I mean, that's all fine and good. If he's found what works for him and like what works for his movies, there are some Hans Zimmer scored movies where I'm like, I could have done with a more traditional score. I know that like going back to John Williams for a second, my wife and I watched Disclosure Day like a week ago, and
Hmm.
um,
Haven't seen it yet.
I won't say anything about how we liked the movie or didn't like it or whatever, but I will say that in terms of score, it definitely felt like an old school Spielberg movie. Like it did not feel modern in that sense at all, because as I'm watching it, I'm like, this is a John Williams Spielberg movie. He actually came out of
Hmm.
retirement because Spielberg insisted that he did the score for this movie, and the guy's like 100, you know. Um, so, but it did feel very old school. I felt like I was kind of watching a mixture of like some like War of the Worlds, like, you know, Spielberg's, but like kind of more 80s, like less digital noise and trying to make it look.
Mhm.
I think they did a good job at making it kind of feel more modern. You know, the jury's out if you like the movie or not. But yeah, it was this weird thing where I'm like, if somebody else did it today, I don't know how successful it would be
Mhm.
in terms of like the score,
And that's
you
Hans
know.
Zimmer?
No, it's
Hans
John
Zimmer did
Williams.
Disclosure
John
Day?
Williams.
Oh.
No.
Did
But
Disclosure
I'm
Day.
kind of
Okay.
thinking of him because like we talked about him, and you mentioned like, oh, you hear a score and you're like, that's instant. You know, it's Danny
Yeah,
Elfman.
yeah, yeah.
I think Thomas Newman is another one that you just
Mhm.
hear, especially if you kind of
Mhm.
listen around like the mid '90s to like mid 2000s, like 2005. You know, him doing like Road to Perdition, Shawshank
Shawshank.
Redemption,
Yeah,
American
Shawshank.
Beauty.
And it's funny because
Um,
I never really noticed those until you and Elon brought it up.
yeah, Finding Nemo is another
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
you know, you're like this guy, and then you realize, oh wait, this '80s movie was scored by David Newman, his brother. So his
yeah. Or
brother got,
Randy Newman or
or
whoever is
yeah,
related to him too, right?
I don't think Randy Newman is related, but
Oh, I thought he was.
yeah, but no, David Newman and Thomas Newman are brothers, and David Newman did a lot of like the '80s, like Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. Um, I think he
Cousin.
did.
Randy Newman is his cousin.
Yeah, if you guys ever want to laugh and you're okay watching Mad TV, because I know some people hate that. Will Sasso did a great bit on like Randy Newman writing songs to Star Wars. You know what I'm talking about?
I've seen it.
Star
Yes, I've
Wars,
seen it.
Star Wars.
Yeah.
It's just so good. But yeah,
That's
that's
funny.
yeah. I think I don't know. I think there's space for all of these composers. I mean, there's so many out there, and yeah, there's a lot of guys that like just keep getting work because they're good and they're
Well,
they're.
to me, I feel like you mentioned Inception as like an example of when Hans Zimmer did something cool, and to me that was cool because slowing down those instruments to get that wong
Yeah,
wong, that droning sound that kind of is the the heartbeat of that whole movie.
yeah,
That's a cool thing because he's literally using new technology to do something that was physically not possible before. Like we couldn't slow tapes down back in the day
yeah,
enough to get that drastic of a sound or whatever. However, on the other hand, I also feel like that argument about, musicians or composers having a similar like feel or a sound that you like recognize instantly that's them is the same complaint that's lodged against a lot of musicians when people say that, like, and this is gonna a little out there of an example, but like Metallica, when Metallica tried something new, they got panned for it because people were like, this doesn't sound like Metallica. And then on the other hand, you have the bands that, do the same thing over and over and over again. And then people are like, this sounds exactly the same as what they did. Like they're not growing as artists or whatever. And so I get there's like this weird gray area that people are like, they're not happy when artists change, but they're also
yeah,
not happy when they stay
and
the
yeah,
same. And so then, like you contend with some of this stuff. And I just think that like Danny Elfman to me is one of those people that has changed with the times, but has also managed to keep that modern style. John Williams, not so much, but I think John Williams to me gets a pass because he's just created so many iconic
yeah. Dude's been
themes.
doing
I
it for
mean,
so
you
long.
literally, when somebody mentions Indiana Jones, I hear the theme in my
Um,
head. When somebody says Star
yeah,
Wars, you hear the Star Wars or the Empire, Darth Vader, da,
yeah,
da, da. Like there's just so many of those iconic passages that he's created. And then like Hans Zimmer, I think is almost the mixture of the two. He's trying new stuff, but the more he tries new stuff now, I'm craving his old stuff and being like, you sound like the old, like the Steve Buscemi, like, hey there, fellow kids,
yeah.
like
From
he's,
30 Rock. Yeah,
yeah, like he's hearing, and rightly so. I mean, I get the motivation behind it. He's hearing stuff like
mhm,
Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, and being like, that sounds cool. People are into that. They're getting work. I want to continue getting work, so I'm going to modernize with the times. But again, like I guess I don't feel like a lot of it is that successful, and so I'm kind of pining for the older Hans Zimmer stuff. And I mean, I don't know. I don't know where I was really going with that question. I was interested because you had mentioned some of
yeah.
that
And I'm
music as
really
being so.
like, I've always been very into like like film scores and like original orchestral scores more so than like whatever song they used in the movie. I mean, I was like talk about like, oh, back in like 2007 when I was in college delivering pizzas, I would literally listen to, film scores like in my car as I'm like, instead of like, whatever band was popular, I'm like listening to, Pirates of the Caribbean or,
Mhm.
E.T. or Inception, things like that. And what's funny is like you mentioned Metallica and how like, oh, it Metallica is one of the bands where they have changed multiple times throughout the years, and there are fans of each kind of version of Metallica,
Mhm.
right? So you have like Kill 'Em All, and everybody's like, "Oh man, like that was their best album. It was like aggressive and all this." And then they got like, they Ride the Lightning is like, "Oh man, they softened up," and then they, kind of rode that lightning through like Master of Puppets and Justice for All, and then they came out with the Black Album, and people were like not happy. Like original fans that kind of went over and were like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I can tolerate Master of Puppets." Black Album was like, "No way, it's too commercial."
Well,
You
what's
know?
interesting to me about that is that Metallica has, they made those changes. There's a little bit of, like staff changes, I guess you can call it, or like, band member changes
He
that
fucking
contributed
left
to
the
that
band.
a
Sorry.
little bit.
Yeah.
But it
Right.
contributed to that a little, but it's not. Metallica is interesting to me because it's not like Van Halen where
Right.
the singer changes and then people are like there's eras of Van Halen that be like it's Van Hagar not Van Halen or whatever the case
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Metallica doesn't really have that, and not to take it back to like the composer thing, but I don't know of any other like a composer doesn't have that. You can't change. There's no band to change. There's no personnel to change
Right.
because the
Right.
character of that person's music is driven by their music. They are the ones that make the change. And Metallica, to me, is kind of driven like that. Like the core of Metallica is still mostly the same, even,
Yep.
years
Yep.
later. And so it's like it doesn't necessarily have that as a quote unquote excuse that people can use for that. So,
Yeah. And I think the kind of moral of the not even the story, but kind of the point is when you hear Hans Zimmer, even now, it's Hans Zimmer.
mhm.
When you hear Danny Elfman, it's Danny Elfman. When you hear John Williams, it's him. There are very few composers that truly adapt. I don't want to say adapt, but they, you hear Thomas Newman or something, they can do different things. There are Danny Elfman scored films that you go, wait, Danny Elfman did this? It doesn't sound like his traditional
Mhm.
thing. And I think that that's also the sign of a really good composer, because if you can have your music disappear without calling attention to itself, that you go, that was Danielle, it surprises you because you're like, wow, okay, they're like a chameleon. It's kind of like those actors that you're like, wait, whoa, whoa. He was in this, and this, and I'm just now putting it together. Like they literally just disappear into roles. And I'm not talking about Jared Leto. Um, he doesn't disappear into anything. We all know. He's in
Even
the back going,
Skeletor, he's literally no part of him is on screen, and all I
I
could hear
know.
was his voice as Skeletor.
And all I can hear is "Come break me down."
Ugh.
Sorry.
I'm trying to find. This is just reminding me of there's a video a long time ago because I believe it came out when like the first Avengers movie was released or something like that. And I remember some of the criticisms that were leveraged against Hans Zimmer when he was doing his first batch of Marvel movies was that I'm
I
I'm
agree.
picturing Nicole Kidman saying that Jared Leto, where movies disappear.
We're moving.
But Hans Zimmer got a ton of shit because they said that he for all the Marvel movies that he tried to do, and I'm trying to find where the start of that was because didn't he do Iron Man? Was it Iron Man?
um, I'm not sure. I should know this. I'm not a big Marvel fan, so I don't.
I'm a Marvel fan, but I'm not like a diehard, I guess.
Mhm.
Maybe I'm
He's
thinking
never
of
scored a
somebody
film in the
else.
Marvel Cinematic Universe.
At all?
No.
Oh, scored, but wasn't a part of it at all?
No, he previously co-composed the Amazing Spider-Man 2. Um, but he did do the Dark Knight trilogy, obviously.
Yeah.
Uh, Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, obviously because him and Zack Snyder worked together, and then Dark Phoenix.
He did Guardians of the Galaxy. Cinco saying he did Guardians of the
Yeah.
Galaxy. I don't know. Anyway, the video that I'm talking about, I'll have to go find it. But and I thought it was Hans Zimmer that they were leveraging the criticism against, but maybe it wasn't. But it was that there was the differences between somebody like John Williams and some of these other composers that the Marvel movies weren't doing, is that they were trying to make these ensemble films, but the music didn't identify, like it wasn't identifiable with any of the characters. So like Iron Man didn't have his own theme. Oh, Cinco was joking. Okay.
I was like literally
Ooh,
looking
right
up,
over
I'm like,
right
wait a
over my
minute.
head. Right
Now I
over
want to
my
know who
head.
did it.
Yeah,
Cool.
I mean we got to look it up because this guy got a bunch of shit, or girl, whoever it was, got a ton of shit. But that even in the Avengers movie, like there wasn't a cohesive like Avengers theme until the later, I think Age of Ultron, the second Avengers movie, was when they really finally started to get like there was an Avengers theme, like there was a little passage of notes, you know, a
Mhm.
little riff or whatever that was like that's the Avengers theme. So when they come on screen, you hear the like da 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 or
Yeah.
whatever. You know, Iron Man shows up on screen, he's got his thing. Captain America shows on screen, and they, you know, they each had their own kind of like, you know, riff that signified them. And I always thought that was interesting because now when I watch movies, I look for those like motifs that
Yeah. Oh, Alan
composers
Silvestri
use.
did
That's who it
the
is. Alan
yeah,
Silvestri. Another one
the
of, you know, ton of movies, pretty well-known name, because he did like Forrest Gump and some of those
Back
others,
to the
right?
Future.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Back to the Future.
All
You
maybe
know,
I think all of Robert Zemeckis' films he did.
yeah. And
Yeah.
that's another one, you know, and I think that's what was so weird about those is that like Back to the Future, everybody, you know, everybody knows the theme.
Yep.
Everybody knows that little motif.
Yep.
Forrest Gump, everybody knows the little you know, the feather
Mm.
song or whatever. And then he did Avengers or whatever, and it was like there was a little bit that was like consistent between it, but for the most part, it's like missing that punch of like, hey, you have all these worlds. The main song should like bring all their songs together so
Yeah.
that in addition to seeing them as a group on screen, you're hearing them as a group and so on
Yeah.
and so forth. And
I thought this was interesting. So Avengers Age of Ultron was actually co-scored by Brian Tyler and Danny Elfman.
no shit.
Interesting. Yeah.
See, it's
But that
all
was
coming
the only
full
one.
circle.
Yeah,
It's the
that was
Pee
the
Wee
only one. He
connection.
did all Alan Silvestri did all of the other Avengers. I like how we've gotten on this topic now because it all wraps back to or all comes back to Danny
Danny
Elfman,
Elfman. Yeah,
you
man.
know. Um
Yeah.
I mean got his original Batman score for
Mm-hmm.
Batman and Batman Returns. Just
Mm-hmm.
iconic. Like I mean that's how do you
But that's
make
what
a
I'm saying.
Batman
You can
movie
hear
without hearing
yeah.
that?
Yeah. And you hear like Pee Wee and you're like, wow, I can make a direct connection
Yep.
between Batman and Pee Wee of all things. You
Batman.
know? Yeah.
I think Pee Wee would love to play Batman for a day.
Oh my God, that'd be hilarious. That actually was another gag that I really liked was when he's running away from the security guards on the golf carts, and he gets in that like cowboy outfit, and when he steps out of the little room or whatever in the hat and the red shirt or whatever, he's still wearing his suit underneath. So
Yep.
like when he turns around and the chaps, like you can see
It's
his
just a
pants
suit.
are still
Yeah.
in there. Yeah.
Yep.
Good jokes, man.
Good stuff.
Good
And there's
jokes.
also, I will mention this because it's not AI, but someone has gone through and rotoscoped Pee Wee into Jurassic Park instead of like the dinosaurs. It's him on his bike. Just
Um,
look
that's
it up on YouTube.
incredible. I
Yeah.
haven't seen it yet. I'm going to watch that. That's incredible
Yes. It's
because
not
that
the
was
whole
another
movie. It's just in
motif.
clips. You
Yeah,
know, it's like
yeah,
must run faster, and it's like him on the bike, like.
but that's funny because it's kind of I was gonna bring this up because it's a motif in the movie as well. But there are dinosaurs all
Yeah,
throughout Pee Wee's Big
dinosaurs.
Adventure, and that makes me feel like that clip or whatever you're talking about is like a call and response to Pee-wee having dinosaurs in a bunch
Yep.
of different scenes in the movie. And now Pee-wee's in a bunch of scenes of a dinosaur movie.
I know. I know. I
Beautiful
will say
synergy.
before we go, one little gag in the movie that always got me as a kid, and it gets me even more now, is when his bike gets stolen, he runs back into the store, hits the horn, falls on the bikes. As a
Hmm.
kid, I always like, that's a mannequin that just falls over. There's someone like pushing him over on the 4K Blu-ray, which by the way, the remaster job is excellent. On the Criterion Collection, it looks amazing.
Nice.
You can clearly see it's a dummy. It is. There's no denying that it's a dummy that just has the Pee-wee suit
I know,
on.
but you are, but what am I?
Yeah, I'm a loner, Dottie, a rebel.
Pete
The
is definitely
drive-in.
PW.
P.W. Herman.
Yeah.
Anywho, well, so what do you think? What would you? Do you think it stands the test of time? Would you recommend this to people who are fans
Yes.
of Tim Burton or Pee-wee?
Yes. Yes, because it's kind of like a time capsule. You don't
Yep.
really need to know. Like there's all kinds of little like anachronistic stuff. So the time period that the movie takes in doesn't really matter. The jokes, like the other movie you mentioned, like parody movies and stuff like that. The other one that I thought of when you talked about how he would do interviews as Pee-wee was when Mike Myers did Austin Powers and did a bunch of interviews as Austin Powers, but he dropped that shtick after like the first or second movie. Actually, I think it was like right after the first one. He
Yeah.
stopped doing the interviews as Austin Powers and then went back to doing interviews as Mike Myers. And
Hmm.
my biggest complaints, Kelly and I, within the last 2 years or whatever, did a marathon where we watched all three of the Austin Powers movies. And my biggest complaint about that is how I feel like the second and the third one don't hold up as well because there's a ton of references that are just like really dated,
Mhm.
starting from the beginning of the second one where they're aping Mission Impossible 2 specifically with Tom Cruise playing Austin Powers and all that stuff. Like a lot of the references in that are like very, very dated to the time period that movie came out in. And Pee-wee doesn't really suffer from that. There's not really any references that are that explicitly dated that it's like, oh wow, I'm not gonna get this movie or I'm not even gonna understand it. And even the payphone thing, I think like that to me now just plays off as like a gag. Like, yeah, payphones don't exist anymore, but it's fucking Pee-wee, so it just kind
Yeah.
of plays as another like weird thing about Pee-wee. Like, why is he using a payphone?
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely still think it holds up. And actually, I'm getting the Criterion release, and I'm more than I want to do a shelf worthy episode on it, because the discs themselves are really cool. Like I said, I watched some of the they have a whole like animatic version of Pee-wee where you can see the script supervisor or the production designer. The
Mhm.
production designer goes through and kind of talks about decisions that they made and challenges that they had. And one of the things that blows my mind about Pee-wee is that a lot of the set pieces were filmed on the same set. And he talked a lot about how one of the challenges of this movie was that they knew ahead of time there would not be any opportunity for reshoots of anything. So they literally had to like nail down in advance in the pre-production stages what every scene was going to look like because they were literally building the scene, set and everything, filming it, and then tearing it down because they had to use that same space to set up the next set and
Oh
build the
my
next
god.
scenes. And so once the set was torn down, there's no going
That's
back.
it.
You're not gonna refilm anything that happened in that thing because it's literally
Yeah.
destroyed. The next one is put up and then whatever. And he said that a couple times even they did that stuff and then it ended up getting cut in the edit. And he's like, luckily with Tim Burton, he's like such a kind of perfectionist about that stuff and he wants everything planned ahead of time that it was very, very rare for them to actually put something to film that didn't get put into the film. So it was really nice, as he's working on stuff because they knew if they built a set, if they planned it out, there was like a really, really high chance that it was going to get used in the film. So I, more so than anything else, appreciate the fact that not only did they make this literal time capsule of a movie that still somehow holds up today, but they did it in the most asinine, crazy way possible that is befitting of a Pee Wee Herman movie, you know?
Yeah.
Like I just can't imagine another movie taking chances like that and being like, we're you know, we're gonna. And granted, I'm sure probably save them a ton of money to rent that one space and then just
Yeah.
reuse it. They're gonna have to build sets no matter where they filmed. But having to do them like in order in the time that they had without being able to do separate unit photography or like split up the sets or anything like that, it's just crazy as Pee Wee Herman. That's the credit I'll give it. It
Yeah.
is literally as crazy a plan as Pee Wee Herman is.
Well, I definitely agree, and I think that it holds up extremely well. Also, I don't know if the Criterion has the same commentaries on it. I'm sure it does, but there's two commentaries. There's a Paul Rubens and Tim Burton commentary, as well as a music only track with commentary by Danny Elfman. So
That's what you need, man. That
that's it.
Criterion version has it. I actually haven't gotten my hands on it yet. I'm
Yeah.
so terrible. Like, I feel like when we decide to do these movies, I try to order them right away. But because I'm not the Amazon guy like everybody,
Yeah.
I can't get the movies in 2 days. I actually have to wait for like regular shipping,
Yeah.
and it ends up screwing me sometimes.
Or you
But
could just pay for expedited shipping, which is
some
like
people don't even offer it anymore. It's
yeah, it's
crazy.
crazy. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. Well, and then with Criterion stuff, I mean, I love Criterion, but I typically try to wait for the 50% off
Yeah,
sales.
they're
So,
they're not they're not cheap.
yeah.
I said they're not expensive. No, they're not cheap.
Yeah.
They're
Okay. So 4K digital restoration, supervised and approved by Tim Burton, alternate DTS HD 5.1 surround master audio soundtrack, one 4K UHD of the film and Dolby Vision HDR, one Blu-ray with the film and special features, audio commentary by Burton and actor co-writer Paul Rubens, audio commentary by composer Danny Elfman over a music-only soundtrack to the film. So it sounds like it does have both of those.
yep.
New interviews with Tim Burton and actor filmmaker Richard Ayoade. Oh, that's interesting. And then new interviews with producer Richard Abramson, production designer David Snyder, co-writer Michael Varhol, editor Billy Weber, and critic Mark Olson. Hollywood
That's
Master
interesting
Storytellers
that
interview.
they got like Tim Burton and Richard Ayoade on the same like.
Yeah,
I
right.
love Richard Ayoade. The IT Crowd is like one of my all-time favorite shows like ever. And he plays Moss. If you guys haven't seen the show and you like British comedy, fucking watch it. It's hilarious. It's definitely dated, but
Yeah.
oh my god, it's so good. Yeah, that's interesting. And I think he's hilarious and dry and yeah.
Yeah.
So definitely.
That'll be good.
I
I'm
need to get
excited
the
to get that
Criterion
one.
version.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I'm gonna get it and then do a one of Elan's shelf-worthy videos on it.
Yeah.
Because the Criterion stuff, I really like, in addition to whatever's on the disc, they usually include like a little booklet or some additional accoutrement that make it really, really fun and add a little bit of production info to it. Arrow Video does that a lot.
Yeah.
Shout Factory has some of those sometimes, and sometimes they're great. Other times it's kind of like, I can take it or leave it. But I'm hoping this one is worth it because this disc itself sounds like it's worth it. So.
My hope is one day to be wealthy enough to get a Pee Wee bike replica to display in my house.
How much is it?
I have
When's your
no
birthday?
idea.
Just kidding.
I have no idea. It'd be
Come on,
like
Hidden Movie Club fans, let's do a GoFundMe to get
GoFundMe. Brad needs
his
a
Pee Wee bike.
Back to the Future screen accurate DeLorean. Preferably two with Mr. Fusion on the back. I need fuel.
Holy shitballs. A scale version of the bicycle costs $385, so I can't even imagine what the real thing would cost. I bet you there's some weirdo on Etsy or something. God, I love weirdos.
Yeah. And then I want two phone booths. One from Bill and Ted and one from Doctor Who.
So you want 2 time machines then?
3 if you count the DeLorean.
Oh, yeah. You don't care about the phone booths. You just want time machines.
Yeah, I just want time machines. Hell, like what's the fourth one? There's a fourth what's that thing that the in Avengers where they go back in time? Let's get one of those.
Nah. Oh my gosh, you could 3D print Pee Wee's bike.
That's
I don't know how well that would hold up, but That's funny. All right. Well, do you have anything else about the movie that you want to talk about, or anything else you want to go into?
No, I think that's it. Like, I think this has stood the test of time. I would recommend it for anybody breathing.
Same, especially if you saw Pee Wee's Playhouse. Again, I can't believe
Yeah,
that I saw Pee Wee's Playhouse and you know didn't see this until much later, at
if
least.
you're yeah, and if you grew up in the Sarasota, Florida area, then Paul Rubens is a local hero there. He was born and raised in Sarasota, Florida. So I don't think he was born there. He was
In
he was
fact,
definitely
you can
raised.
visit the theater that he had a good
Yeah,
time at.
they tore the school down that he attended, but um, yeah. Anyway, that's it. That's all I got.
Anyway.
I don't got anything
All
else.
right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. We really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. We appreciate the support. As always, we are doing giveaways of physical discs. So if you want the Criterion version of Pee-wee's Big Adventure, or if you want a Blu-ray copy of that or any of the other movies that we have talked about, either in after the credits or during double take, please join our $5 tier on Substack. You can go to hiddenmovieclub.com. All the links are on there, to YouTube, to Substack, to everything. And then we also have a couple digital codes to give away. So if you're not on the paid tier, even as a free subscriber to Substack, you can still get some free digital copies of movies. But as always, we recommend, when you can, buy the physical media, vote with your wallet, go see the movie in theaters with your friends if you can, if you have those things. I know they're rare and hard to come by nowadays, but if you got friends, go see these movies in the theater when they release. And join us next week. We're going to talk about a movie on Double Take that's somehow tangentially related to this, maybe even another Tim Burton movie. That usually is what Elin and I do, and that's typically fun. And then in 2 weeks, for the next After the Credits, we're going to try to do Moonlight. And then after that, our next After the Credits is going to be, I believe, The Fifth Element, unless something changes. So Moonlight in 2 weeks, and then Fifth Element 2 weeks after that, and then some fun hits with me and Elin between that. So thank you for joining us. We'll see you guys next week, and Brad, we'll see everybody in 2 weeks, unless you decide to join us for Double Take again. And again, we really appreciate you guys. We'll see you around. Have fun watching movies.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Haha.